Have you ever had a moment where your life looked fine from the outside, but internally, it felt like something was off? You're doing all the right things, showing up, staying busy, smiling when you're supposed to. But deep down, there's a heaviness, like your spirit is tired, and you don't even know why. You wake up feeling drained. You overthink everything. You can't focus the way you used to. And even when you rest, it's not the kind of rest that heals. If that feels familiar, this might not just be burnout. This might be something deeper. You might be under spiritual attack. Before we go any further, don't skip ahead. Each part of what I'm about to share builds on the one before it. This isn't a checklist, it's a mirror. Miss one, and you might miss the shift your soul was quietly asking for. And hey, if this message already feels like it's speaking to something real in you, tap subscribe. This space is for people walking through quiet battles and rising with more clarity, peace, and power on the other side. We live in a world that talks a lot about success, but not much about spiritual strength. We're encouraged to chase milestones, but not to notice when our spirit is under pressure. The truth is, not every battle you face is physical or emotional. Some are unseen, and if you don't recognize them, they'll wear you down from the inside out. That's why today I'm sharing 5 powerful signs you may be under spiritual attack. These aren't meant to scare you. They're here to help you wake up, reclaim your energy, and realign with your purpose. The last one, it almost broke me until I realized it was my invitation to rise higher than I ever had before. Let's begin. You feel spiritually numb, even when you crave connection. Let's start with something a lot of people are feeling, but almost no one is talking about: spiritual numbness. That hollow, empty, disconnected feeling, even when your life seems okay on the outside. You know you want to feel connected to God, to purpose, to yourself, but for some reason, you just can't. You try. You want to feel inspired. You want that fire back, the clarity, the peace, the alignment, but all you get is silence. Here's the deeper truth. Disconnection is the first tool of any spiritual attack, because when the enemy, or let's just say, the negative forces around you, can isolate you from yourself, truth, and your connection to the divine, then everything else becomes easier to knock down. That's when doubt creeps in. That's when exhaustion takes over. That's when peace feels out of reach. Because the moment you start believing you're alone, you forget how powerful you actually are. Let me ask you this. How many hours do you spend scrolling, just hoping to feel something? You watch videos. You like the quotes. You save the motivational stuff. You know what you should be doing, but still, your soul doesn't feel fed. You pray, but your prayers feel dry, like you're talking to the ceiling. You open your journal or your Bible or that spiritual book your friend recommended, but none of it sticks. None of it moves you. It's like you're watching your own life from the outside, while your spirit waits in the background, quietly asking, "Hey, do you still hear me?" So I want to gently ask you, when was the last time you were truly still? Not passive, not bored, but present, not scrolling, not overthinking, not fixing, just being. There's a difference between being inactive and being still enough to feel your own spirit again. Because here's what I believe. Your spirit isn't dead, it's just buried, under noise, under pressure, under expectations, under comparison. And spiritual attacks aren't always loud. Sometimes they're so quiet, you don't even notice the shift until months go by and you realize, I don't even recognize myself anymore. And here's what makes this even trickier. In today's world, numbness is normalized. You're expected to be busy, to grind, to always have something playing. Music, a podcast, a reel, a voice in your ear telling you what to think, what to feel, who to be. So when you finally try to sit in silence, it feels uncomfortable, like something's wrong. But that discomfort, that's not wrong. That's your spirit detoxing from the distractions. Stillness isn't emptiness. Stillness is where you find yourself again. So what if, instead of trying harder to connect, you tried slowing down enough to listen? What if you gave your spirit permission to speak first? Before Instagram, before the news, before the world gets its hands on your mind? Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is pause, breathe, and listen for the voice beneath the noise. Because once disconnection sets in, once we become numb, the next phase of the attack is easier to slip in. It's when everything starts to feel heavy, and you don't even know why. It's not just tiredness, it's spiritual fatigue, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack next. 2. Everything feels heavy, but you can't explain why. Let's talk about the weight you can't name. Not physical weight, not a packed schedule, not some obvious crisis. I'm talking about that quiet heaviness, the kind that lives in your chest, lingers behind your eyes, and follows you from room to room. It's subtle, but constant. You wake up after 8 hours of sleep and still feel tired. You try to be excited about something you used to love, and it feels like effort. You go through your routine, and somehow everything just feels heavier than it should. This is something most people don't talk about enough. Spiritual warfare doesn't always show up like a thunderstorm. Sometimes it arrives like a fog. You can't see it clearly, but you feel it everywhere. And this fog doesn't come from nowhere. It often carries weight that doesn't even belong to you. You might be absorbing someone else's energy, carrying invisible expectations, holding on to pain that was never fully processed, or picking up fear and pressure that wasn't even yours to begin with. Let's get real for a moment. Do you ever feel like you're dragging yourself through moments that should feel meaningful? Like your passion feels more like a job. The friends you once enjoyed now feel draining. Even the music, the prayers, the routines, they don't hit the way they used to. You're functioning, but you're not feeling. You show up, but you're not fully present. And the worst part, you can't explain it. So you start questioning yourself. Am I just lazy? Is something wrong with me? Why can't I just snap out of this? But what if you're not broken? What if you're just burdened by something that was never yours to carry? Here's a question to sit with. Are you carrying something that doesn't belong to you? Whose energy have you been absorbing without realizing it? Whose expectations are weighing on your chest? Whose pain, fear, or pressure have you taken on as your own? Because sometimes we don't even realize we've become the emotional sponge for everyone else's storm. We take in the unspoken disappointments of our families, the pressures of social media perfection, the silent guilt of not being enough. And we wear it like it's part of our soul, when really it was never ours. And here's where Stoicism meets spirit. A Stoic doesn't just react to what's felt. They examine it. They ask, is this within my control? Is this mine to carry? And spiritually, that same filter applies. Not every burden that touches you belongs to you. Some things must be handed back, released, returned to sender, with peace and love. Because carrying things you were never meant to carry will always leave you tired, not because you're weak, but because it's not your weight. So if everything feels heavy right now, don't just ask what's wrong with me. What have I picked up that isn't mine? What's weighing me down that my soul never asked for? Then give yourself permission to lay it down, to step back, to breathe without apologizing. That's not avoidance. That's spiritual protection. Because the moment you start recognizing what's not yours, you also begin reclaiming what is, your energy, your peace, your ground. But protecting your energy means you have to recognize the next sign, the one that sneaks in through your habits and rewrites how you see yourself. And that's exactly what we'll unpack. Next. 3. You're constantly distracted from what matters most. You ever plan to have a peaceful day? You tell yourself, I'll finally journal today. I'll get quiet and reflect. I'll spend real time with God, with myself, with purpose. But then, a text distracts you. A trending post sucks you in. An argument hijacks your energy. Or some fake urgency that wasn't even yours to begin with demands your full attention. And just like that, another day gone, another moment lost, another seed that never got planted. Here's something to sit with. A busy mind can be a blocked spirit. Not all spiritual attacks are loud. Sometimes the enemy doesn't come to destroy. He just comes to distract. Because if he can't ruin you, he'll settle for diverting you. From the things that feed your soul, from the stillness where wisdom lives, from the peace that would have revealed your next move. And the worst part? It never feels like an attack. It feels like life, notifications, obligations, a million tiny things that seem important but leave you spiritually starved. Let's be honest. When was the last time you sat in silence and didn't reach for your phone? When was the last time you had space to think, and I mean really think, without being pulled in 10 directions? When was the last time you were fully present? Most of us live in a loop of reaction, reacting to drama, reacting to stress, reacting to every ping that tells us we're falling behind, missing out, not enough, and we don't even notice that the noise isn't just taking our attention, it's stealing our alignment. So here's the deeper question. What would your life feel like if you weren't always reacting? Seriously, what could you build if your energy wasn't scattered? What could you hear if the noise stopped for even an hour? Maybe your peace isn't gone, just buried under the chaos. Maybe your calling hasn't left. It's just been drowned out. And the truth is, you were never meant to be on all the time. Your soul wasn't built for this constant buzz, this endless scroll, this emotional whiplash. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is shut the noise off. In Stoic practice, there's a concept called apatheia. It's not apathy, it's inner stillness, a refusal to be ruled by every external thing, a commitment to guarding your attention like it's sacred. Because it is. Your attention is your life force. Where it goes, your energy flows. And if the enemy can scatter your attention, he doesn't need to destroy you. You'll self-destruct slowly by losing your center. So maybe today, you don't need another app, another task, another plan. Maybe what you need is less, less noise, less reaction, less urgency that isn't rooted in truth. And in that less, you'll find more of yourself, more peace, more wisdom, more clarity, more alignment with what actually matters. Because your spirit is still there. It's just been waiting for you to slow down long enough to catch up. But there's a deeper layer to this, because once you've been pulled away from what matters, once your mind is overwhelmed and your soul is tired, the next sign creeps in. It makes you question yourself, your value, your worth, even your sanity. And that's where the real danger begins. Let's go there next. 4. You start doubting your worth, your path, or your progress. There's a kind of doubt that doesn't come screaming. It creeps in quietly. Usually when you're alone. Usually when you're tired. It doesn't say, you're failing. It says, shouldn't you be further by now? Why are you still struggling with this? Look at them. They're doing better. And suddenly, all your growth starts to feel invisible. All your efforts start to feel small. And your once clear path, now it just feels blurry. Here's the truth behind this kind of spiral. Spiritual attacks often target your identity, not your job, not your bank account, not your relationship status, your identity. Because if the enemy can shake how you see yourself, he doesn't have to stop your life. You'll sabotage it yourself. He'll whisper lies in your quiet moments. You're not doing enough. You should be over this by now. Maybe you're not chosen. Maybe you're just delusional. And you start believing it, even though deep down, you know you've been showing up. You've been trying. You've been doing the work. Have you ever looked at your journey, all the steps you've taken, and still felt like you were behind? You know you've grown, but somehow it still doesn't feel like it's enough. You rest for a day, and guilt creeps in. You slow down, and suddenly it feels like failure. Even though you've been healing, learning, stretching yourself more than ever, it still feels like everyone else is doing it faster, better, louder. And that feeling, that's not truth. That's warfare. Because comparison is a liar, and guilt is its shadow. Let me ask you this. What if your doubt isn't truth, but a distraction? What if the confusion you feel about your path isn't because you're lost, but because you're finally on the right one? And what if who you're becoming scares the part of the world that wants you to stay small? Think about it. When you start stepping into your truth, everything that benefited from your silence, your fear, your smallness, gets nervous. Because a grounded, clear, and confident version of you, that's a threat to systems built on your insecurity. Stoicism teaches us to return to the self, to separate what's in our control from what's not, to silence the noise and remember, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. So when your mind starts spinning with doubt, come back to the facts. You've survived things you thought would break you. You've grown in silence. You've rebuilt without applause. You are not behind, you are becoming. Here's what no one tells you. Growth is awkward. Healing is nonlinear. Confidence is rebuilt in silence. And that voice that says you're not enough, it's not truth. It's fear. It's the echo of old versions of you that no longer fit. It's the last resistance before a breakthrough. So don't let doubt become your compass. Let your evidence be your anchor. Look at how far you've come, not where you think you should be, Because truth lives in presence, not pressure. And now, the next sign? It wasn't loud, but it was deep. It didn't shake my world at once. It chipped away at it quietly, until I almost lost my voice entirely. Let's talk about the kind of silence that isn't peaceful, but spiritual suffocation. Your peace becomes uncomfortable. So you self-sabotage. Let's talk about something a little uncomfortable. Peace. Not the idea of peace, but the actual experience of it. Because for some of us, when life finally slows down, when the noise stops, when the chaos quiets, something weird happens. We don't feel safe. We feel suspicious. And without realizing it, we start stirring things up again. Here's what you need to know. Sometimes the most dangerous spiritual attacks aren't loud. They don't come as accidents or heartbreak or betrayal. Sometimes the attack is the inability to sit with calm, the whisper that says, "This can't last. This is too good to be true." You must have forgotten something. Go check again. Why? Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that peace is a luxury, not a right. That joy has to be earned, not received. That calm is suspicious, not sacred. So what do? You sabotage it, not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you're still unlearning a life that ran on survival mode. Let's make it real. You finally get a free day. No deadlines, no fires to put out. Just you in stillness. But instead of feeling gratitude, you feel guilt, restlessness, this low hum of something's off. So you overthink a text that didn't need decoding, pick a fight that didn't need to happen, say yes to something you don't have capacity for, fill your calendar to avoid sitting with the quiet. You call it being productive, but deep down, you're running, not from a threat, but from the very peace your soul has been begging for. Because chaos is familiar, drama feels normal, overwhelm feels like home. So now I want to ask you, what if you've been trained to run from peace? What if, somewhere deep inside, you don't trust stillness because it reminds you of all the times you let your guard down and something bad happened? What if your nervous system is finally getting the space to relax, but your mind is still on high alert? And most importantly, what if this is the moment you learn to stay with the calm, to stay with the soft, to stay with the part of you that's not fighting anymore? Because this is the beginning of real healing, not just breakthroughs, not just aha moments, but the quiet courage to stop running. You see, the enemy doesn't always need to steal your blessings. Sometimes all he needs to do is make you uncomfortable with receiving them. He doesn't have to destroy your peace, just convince you that you don't deserve it, and suddenly, you'll do the rest of the work for him. So here's the truth. If you've felt any of this, the spiritual numbness, the heaviness without a name, the constant distraction, the doubt that eats away at your confidence, the way peace feels unsafe. Let me say this clearly. You are not broken. You are not weak. You're not behind. You're waking up, and waking up is messy. It's raw. It's uncomfortable, but it's powerful. Because the moment you see the attack, you can finally stop agreeing with it. And from that moment on, you're no longer just surviving. You're reclaiming your peace, your presence, your power. Soft pause, music fades slightly. You don't need to fight harder. You just need to return. Return to yourself. Return to your truth. Return to the stillness that has always been home. Because the final enemy is forgetting who you are. And the greatest victory is remembering If any part of this spoke to you, hit subscribe. This space is for you, the quiet warriors, the ones healing, the ones growing, the ones remembering who they've always been beneath the noise. So let's recap. 5 signs you might be under spiritual attack. 1. Spiritual numbness, even when you crave connection. 2. Unexplained heaviness and fatigue. 3. Constant distractions from what truly matters. 4. Doubts that quietly shake. 5. Feeling disconnected from your true self, your identity. 5. Discomfort in peace, leading to self-sabotage. But here's the truth.